In this video, I'm going to cover really briefly how to make sure that your VAs and the people that you hire are actually productive in doing the jobs that you're hiring them for, right? There's really two ways to do that. I'm going to touch on them here in this video, but this is kind of a cautionary tale because one of the best things, and I talked about this in previous videos, that I've done to scale my actual dropshipping business is to hire other people, obviously, and leverage their time, right? Now, there's two ways to basically approach it. The first is to pay someone based on productivity. And for example, one of the ways that I pay one of my VAs is based on listings, right? So I pay them for how many listings they actually get up within the parameters that I set, right? That's really easy because it's easy to kind of track that KPI and be like, okay, they did this amount of listings, I pay them X per listing, and I can track all that back-end data, right? Like I can track like, okay, they did 50 today or they did 100, so I owe them X. And for every time I pay them, to do X, I do Y on that day, so it's pretty profitable, right? Now, obviously, what they're listing that day might not sell right then, and you might get sales from like past days that they maybe didn't list, but it's just an easy way to track. It's an easy way to make sure that they're doing the job you're paying them to do, and it keeps it really simple, right? But what if you're doing like most people recommend and you're actually doing, paying someone for their time, right? Whether it's $3 an hour, $5 an hour, $15 an hour, from someone in the US or whatever it is. How do you track that person if they're doing it remotely and they're not actually like working in an office or with you directly? How do you make sure that they're actually doing the things that you're paying them to do, right? And so I've probably tried to hire 4 or 5 people now. It's nothing crazy. The one dude's actually killing it. The other person does like kind of sporadic work, but they do good work. And one of the people that I actually hired did a good job a couple of times, but I kept running into issues where they were doing product research for me for Amazon specifically, and one night they would do because obviously they live in like a different country, so it's a different time zone, so I'd set it up for them, and one night they'd absolutely kill it, and I'd be like, wow, that was worth the money that I paid for them. It seems like they did a good job, right? And the next night it would be like, well, it doesn't seem like they really got any leads, like maybe it was just unlucky, but like it really doesn't seem like they put the work in or got any, like even close to the results that I was asking or expecting of them, and they claim that they worked X amount of time or they did X amount of work, right? And so I had to kind of figure out like, okay, if I'm paying this person per hour and I'm not sitting there watching them, because obviously that defeats the purpose of hiring for someone else's time, and I'm not sitting there and watching them to make sure that they're doing the work that they say that they're doing, and I need to just trust that they are, how can I verify that? And so what I did is I went out and I found a software. It's called Interguard. It's Interguard software. You can install it on your computer. It's very, very easy. I forget how much it costs a month. Depending on like the computer that you actually have, it might be, I forget the actual amount. I might want to check that. I want to say it's like $90 a year or something per computer, right? So like if you have somebody signing into Splashtop, which is the software that I recommend, basically Splashtop just lets them remote into your computer so that they don't need a VPN, they don't need any of this software. If you're using specific software, they can remote into your computer and use all the stuff on your computer, your IP address, the software you've already paid for, etc., right? And so if you also install Interguard on there, what it basically does is it tracks their productivity using an algorithm based on the time that they're working, right? So you don't need to basically ask them like, oh, how many hours did you work today, right? Oh, you worked 5, I'll pay you for 5, but then you have no way of verifying if they actually worked for 5 hours or 3 hours or 20 hours or whatever, right? And so what Interguard basically does is I use it to compare what they said that they worked and their productivity in those hours, right? It uses an algorithm to track their clicks, their mouse movement and mouse patterns, how many pages they view, per hour, etc., So it tracks all of those things and gives them a productivity score and basically feeds back to you the amount of hours that they were actually productive and working, the amount of hours that they were, or like partial hours, like maybe it's like 37 minutes that they were like idle or like semi-working, 2 hours that they were fully productive and, based on like the KPIs that you set, and like 3 hours that they really weren't doing anything and the computer was kind of just sitting there stagnant and like maybe they changed a page or two, right? And so it's a really revolutionary, at least in my business, software because I don't need to actually go ahead and verify myself and watch them to make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing. This software is tracking all that for me and basically feeding back a productivity score based on that person. And from that information, I can verify whether they're not actually, whether I can trust them, right? Whether or not they're actually working the hours or close to it. I'm not like a crazy stickler, but for example, the one person, this is why I got it, said that they worked 8 hours one night, which isn't a big deal if I'm paying them, $5 an hour or $4 an hour or whatever. It's not that much money. But it's the trust. It's like if you extrapolate that over time and they constantly say they're working this time, but like they're not, you're paying them for a job that they're not doing, right? So I can track the trust based on like if they say that they're working 5 hours and the productivity score is only for like 3.5 or 4, that's not that big of a deal, right? But the one person told me that they were working 8 hours and then they only showed productivity for 45 minutes of those 8 hours. And I was like, well, something's not right here. So I kept verifying, kept using the software to verify. And sure enough, they clearly weren't working what they said they were doing. And the results that they were obviously producing weren't good either, right? So it's easy to verify, the trust, obviously, if they're working the hours that they say that they're working. It's easy to show, like, based on a bunch of different people, if you hire a bunch of different people, who's the best, who's the most productive, who's obviously giving you the results that you're looking for would be the most important. But it's just kind of like a stopgap and a good way to verify your employees are actually doing what they say that they're doing and they're actually productive during the hours that you're working or you're paying them to work, right? So again, it's called Interguard software. You can go ahead and download. I think it's a free trial for like 2 weeks or like 7 to 10 days or something like that. You can try it out for free. It's very, very good. I highly recommend it. And you don't even need to go ahead and install it on your own computer. Like, you don't need to set it up. If you just message support after you go through the free trial, they will literally remote in your computer, set it all up for you, and then you can verify it and see how well it works over like 7 to 10 days or like 2 weeks or whatever during the trial. And then obviously decide for yourself if you want to go ahead and pay for it in full, right? Highly recommend it. It's been revolutionary in my business. And obviously, like, if you plan on scaling to any certain degree and you're hiring multiple employees, it's going to be revolutionary for you, because then you'll know that when you're paying somebody for a task or for an hourly, job or something, they're actually getting results for what you're paying them for.